Let's move to this story now. The 2021 Matric exams today officially came to an end. Of course, we know most people have already finished, but marking is now going to get underway from Wednesday. COVID-19 infections, of course, are surging, so there's a lot to talk about in the education sector, from mandatory vaccines to, of course, keeping the markers healthy while they do their job of marking those Matric exams. Our reporter Nkosazana Dambuza joins me now. Nkosazana, hello. So, of course, this issue of mandatory vaccines, it's gathering pace. We know that Matthew Parks from COSATU last week said that actually the umbrella body was now in favour of mandatory vaccinations. What is Teachers Union SATU saying about the issue of mandatory vaccinations?
Yes, indeed, Sally. 2021 Matric examinations are officially over, and the Department of Basic Education says no major hiccups were reported. And now we're 2 days away from the beginning of the Matric marking process. And obviously there's a lot of anxiety and fears from teachers. I spoke to SATU earlier, and they say given last year's many reports of cases and deaths at marking sites across the country, a lot of teachers are very anxious. And so Teacher Union SATU at the moment are saying that vaccinations won't be made compulsory for teachers at this point, but they are urging markers to get vaccinated before arriving at marking sites. They're saying that, nobody, of course, obviously is forced to arrive, or rather nobody is forced to get vaccinated, but they are calling for all teachers to at least produce a negative test results prior to them being given access to the marking sites. But let's take a listen to Nkosazana from SATU.
As the organizations, whilst we have not discussed the issue of mandatory vaccination, we are calling for the vaccination of everyone, and we are encouraging our teachers and those who are working to really take the vaccine because it works. I am clear that we are going to have a National Executive Committee, and we have got to take cue from what COSATU has already indicated, which is something that I have been raising, that this thing of my right and this it's going to cause more problem because we are going to wait for the world to take decisions on our behalf, because the world is moving on mandatory now. And therefore, it means we cannot lead in a country where we are supposed to save the lives, where we are supposed to making sure that we do things in the common good of everybody.
All right, so that's Nkosazana Dambuza of SATU there. But also, of course, it is a time for the Education Department to pronounce whether they're happy on how the exams progressed. Nkosazana, before I get to that, let's speak about the PCR test issue, because SATU is saying teachers should go for a PCR test. Are these the markers that we're talking about?
Yes, they are referring to the teachers and the markers that are expected to report to duty from the 8th of December. In fact, Sally, this morning I spoke to Nkosazana Dambuza, and he was saying that SATU has made a joint submission with NAPTOSA to the Department of Basic Education, asking that all markers be tested prior to them actually arriving. So they want teachers to actually have in hand test results that reflect a negative status. But they also are urging, teachers to get vaccinated. They're saying that nobody is obviously forced at this point, but they do want PCR testing to be conducted. In fact, they even say that they are urging the Department of Basic Education to consider erecting testing sites, if possible, at the marking sites. But let's take a listen to Nkosazana Dambuza again from SATU.
We have made a submission to what they call a direction as part of being SATU and NAPTOSA, as we always do, joint submission. In our joint submission, we've made it very clear. Let the teachers go for a PCR test because they belong to a medical aid, which is a government medical aid, which is called GEMS. Yes. And therefore, the payment of that particular test is the responsibility of the medical aid, and then it must happen. So yes, the teachers must produce a negative results before they enter the center.
All right, so gearing up for the marking, which starts on Wednesday. The Education Department, are they generally happy, though, with how the exams progress? We certainly didn't see the awful scandals that we saw last year, where papers were leaked out via social media. What did Elijah Mhlanga of the department tell you?
Well, the department says that it's all systems go for the matric marking process. They say they are confident that everything will go according to plan. In fact, he says that strict COVID-19 protocols have been put in place. For example, only 15 markers will be allowed in a room at a time, where before at least 25 markers were allowed to operate in a room. And of course, this is to ensure that there's enough ventilation and to ensure minimal contact as well amongst the markers. But he also said that from this Saturday, officials from the Department of Basic Education will be visiting all 193 marking centres across the country, and this will just be them patrolling and making sure that all the non-pharmaceutical interventions are being strictly adhered to. But let's take a listen to Elijah Mhlanga from the Department of Basic Education.
From our side, the protocols are in place. We'll be able to protect people. These are the same protocols that we applied last year, where we respect social distancing. We already have deliveries in the marking centers of protective equipment, including sanitizers, but we also have appointed compliance officers to make sure that everyone complies. If we were to test everyone, we have 41,500. It's going to delay marking, but we are of the view that most of our markers, if not all of them, are vaccinated, and those that have not, we are encouraging them to do so.
Elijah Mhlanga there, and thank you very much, eNCA reporter Nkosazana Dambuza. Certainly seems all systems go for the marking starting Wednesday.